Hello, and welcome to tonight's Perfect Team Tournament Lab. Let's see if I have uh, Twitch open in the background playing. No, doesn't. All right, so mic check 1, 2. Can I get a confirmation from the peanut gallery? Yes, no, medium, slow. I hear one nerd. I prefer almonds. Okay, the almond gallery. All right. So welcome. This is the Perfect Team Tournament Lab Round 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm welcomed with, or I'm joined tonight by the one, the only, the Aster 31.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. I feel welcome.
So there's a new PTCS coming out. That's not what we're going to be talking about, though. We're going to be talking about Tournament Lab. Yep, there's the other nerd. The third nerd, Durden, who really wanted to be here. Again, is having a rough time with just everything. So we wish him luck, and he's around. He's just by this time he's typically kind of tapped out energy wise. Uh, so without further ado, even though I don't have a lot of ados, let's get into it. Aster, take us through the tournament refresh overview.
Okay. So, sort of today, possibly tomorrow. It looks like they're popping up randomly. We're getting some changes. I'm going to start with the daily tournaments. So the daily iron cap was 1920 settings. There already a second one popped up today with the new 1999 settings. So make sure you adjust because when you move forward in era with the settings, it really can destroy your pitching staff because you probably only have 2 or 3 starters and 5 or 6 relievers in 1999 settings. That's going to get blown up really quickly. Um, for daily low gold cap is going from modern settings to 1954. Since that's going the opposite direction, obviously you'd like to be able to optimize your settings for the format. You only need 3 pitchers, but if you're running the old settings, you're not going to necessarily get destroyed. And we've actually seen a number of teams do well without adjusting their settings. Same thing with daily gold. Historical cap is going back from 1998 to 1930. Generally, with both those, you're going to be able to move some of your pitching points that you had in your 4th and 5th starter into either into your hitting lineup, and you're also going to be able to shorten your bullpen as well, and maybe consolidate into like a couple of reasonably strong relievers. Especially 1930, not so much, but 1954, you probably at least need 1 or 2 half decent relievers, and then depending on how you want to do your settings for your starters. And then daily historical snacking hour also moving from 1983 settings to 1922. So you can make adjustments to that one as well. And then moving on to the weekly tournaments.
There you go.
The Thursday Super Happy Special Edition is going from 1968 settings to modern settings. Main thing with that, probably not a huge adjustment in terms of the pitching. You probably want to, if you only went with 10 or 11 pitchers, you want to go back up to 12. And then just in terms of the profile of the players that you're going for, there's going to probably be more homers, probably a lot more strikeouts, and I would assume, I think, a little bit less walks. For Friday Low Diamond is going from modern settings to 1942 settings. The main adjustment there is to go to 3 starting pitchers. Or if you want to go to 2 and limit them to 60 pitch count, 18 batters face. You can try the Snailman settings for that. And then the Tuesday Golden Boom defense is replaced with Legends of Tuesday, which is historical Legends cards plus Exto. Can we fix that?
Just historical legends.
So sadly, the slide that Dish put out on Thursday did not have the correct information. So it's just historical legends card. It's 1969 settings, no DH. It's an interesting player pool because there are some top end players that not many people have, but there's really I think we're gonna see a very wide range of lineups with this because people at the top are all going to basically have a lot of the same guys, but it's a lot of players that haven't been in any meta in a while. So it's just a question of if you happen to lock them or if you happen to hold on to them. Suddenly, a guy like Gary Sheffield becomes a very interesting 100 overall card because this isn't a cap; it's an open format. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of teams that really only have mostly golds and diamonds. But there are some, perfect cards at most positions that are pretty strong. And then the last one, Thursday Unsung Heroes, is sadly gone and replaced with Thursday Diamonds Only cap. That's going to be a 2,450 cap with a DH and modern settings. It's a pretty loose cap. I built my roster for it earlier this afternoon, and you can fit in a lot of 98, 99 overall cards. I think the math, it was like 11 or 12 caps. So you can put together a pretty strong lineup, especially when you're considering there's a number of 93, 94 overalls that are probably the best option at their position. So those are the 4 tournaments that we've got some changes. The 5th one, of course, is the one we're going to talk most of tonight about, and that's the new Tournament Lab format. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Tournament Lab is a weekly tournament. It was a 20-second tournament that was added to the weekly lineup, and each month we changed the format. So for the first cycle of Tournament Lab, we did Night of the Living DEADBALL, which was all live cards, but 1876 settings. So this one, we're going with a little bit different focus. We're doing DEADBALL and Rebirth cards. So that's all cards from 1945 and earlier. High bronze floor, so 65 and higher. Low diamond ceiling. There's going to be a 1919 cap. So I did the math on the slide. You can see it's a 7.9 cap. So it's a pretty tight cap. And then no special edition cards. So that means none of the new Topps cards, obviously, but none of the SE cards for tournaments or missions are going to work for this tournament and 1998 era. So we get to see what some of these players from the early years of baseball, how they would perform at the height of the steroid era. That was the plan. We also wanted to make it a very approachable player pool. So we took out all the SE cards because there's a lot of still fairly rare limited edition and tournament edition cards that would have played in this time period and in this this range, but we tried to eliminate a lot of those by making it no SE cards. So and then also we did high bronze floor for the first time. There really hasn't been a tournament that utilizes those 65, 66 level cards, and we'll go through tonight and look at which of those might be the most interesting.
Before we get there, I want to go back. Well, I guess there's
Okay.
2 things. There's just this slide again. the error setting must know to
Wait,
kind of
Exo,
read.
how come we don't have the one with Durden's Chrome Dome?
I gotta find that screen cap and I'll just put that in instead of copying and pasting the slide over and over again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
that's
because other people have it, we should have that as well.
I can go dig that up and replace it.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll try and be better for next week, guys.
Uh,
Um,
but what I was kind of interested in, and I think this is one of the first times we've actually or they've actually done um, a tier only tournament, right?
okay,
Like the diamonds only is where is it? I lost it.
oh yeah, the
Yeah, Thursday diamonds only cap. That
right,
like we've never had a like I guess other than the iron tournament. Like you there hasn't been there hasn't been a uh like a like a tier only tournament though. Has there?
yeah, no, there haven't. We've had smaller ranges before. I think we had I, I think we've had like where the spread is only 19. Obviously the oh actually no the low iron is 40 to 49. That's been the only tournament that has this small of a spread from the lowest value card to the highest. So um, yeah, low iron brunch would be the only one comparable where because they split the iron tier, and so it's the same spread of only 40 to 49 versus this is 90 to 99.
The picture for next time.
There we go.
Um,
Um, and then what was the other point you wanted to make?
oh, it's just that it was just kind of interesting, and I was surprised that the cap is so loose, but yeah, it that'll be kind of interesting. Just all the diamonds.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, settings. So remind me again, where do we get this data from?
Um, I can't remember. It wasn't well. Gold historical cap was 1998 settings, but that wasn't what this was from. There was another tournament that was 1998 settings. Why am I blanking now? I can't remember it,
There's a Del
but I feel like
Crandall in the data set. Uh, so there's definitely some cards in here.
okay. Oh, was it the no, it wasn't the bronze historical. I can't remember what tournament was 1998 that we used, but um, I think it's interesting to look at it that from the modern era settings, we see more home runs, which not surprising. The walks go down, the strikeouts go down, um, and but the ERA and runs allowed are pretty similar. Um, BABIP goes down a little bit, um, and the um, we'll we can ignore for purposes of this the left right. That's going to depend entirely on the player pool, which this is regardless of what it is definitely a very different player pool. But just wanted to give you guys some indication of what we think the statistical profile is going to be. So if you look 8K per nine, 4 walks per nine, and 1.8 home runs per nine. So that's the big thing is looking at I usually look at those three statistics to get an idea of what kind of hitters do I want and what kind of pitchers do I want. So hitting home runs and home run suppression are going to be two very important factors in competing in this tournament.
So
But also remember that this tournament, the player pool, 1945 and prior, doesn't have a lot of big power hitters. There's nobody in the entire player pool with over 100 power, and so we'll see. Um, uh, uh, Thank you, Prentice Brown. I needed a good chuckle after a rough day, so I appreciate that. The It'll be interesting to see, do those few players that have 90 plus power end up producing like some of the 120, 130 plus power that we see in some of the other formats, or does it end up not getting the same kind of homework per nine that we see in other tournaments that have a wider range of power spread.
So on the corollary, uh,
Oh,
is there
I'm having trouble.
mic
Exo,
test?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Mic test 1 2 1 2.
Now I hear you again.
Okay, sorry about that. Do you find that on the corollary there's a lot of movement on those pitchers in the card pool?
Yes, there is significant movement. There's a lot of options with very very high movement, but a lot of the Negro League collection pitchers have very high movement, and there's some guys like Herb Pennick, um, Clark Griffith that have very high movement. So on the pitching side, if you think that leaning into movement is the best option, which I lean towards that. And at least that's going to be my working hypothesis until we see actual results. There's a lot of good options kind of throughout the player pool, going from down to the high bronzes to the up to the low diamonds that can provide that for you. And there, even though strikeouts are suppressed a little bit for modern, it's not huge. Going from 9.16 to 8.03. It's definitely a move, but you're still going to want to try and get some some stuff, and control is still going to be important. So you can't really punt any of the three. But I think I'd still lean towards movement as the most important of the three.
So it's pretty much just like not just like, but it's not that far away from the modern run environment, other than a slight increase in home runs.
Right, and then the decrease in walks and strikeouts. So, yeah, it's pretty close. The bigger issue, and why I think it'll be interesting to see how things play out, is that you've got a player pool that doesn't really fit the especially on the hitting side, doesn't really fit the player profile of the players from 1988 that hit that many home runs. So my understanding of the engine is that should make whoever's the has the most power, regardless of who it is, they're gonna they're gonna end up hitting a lot of home runs. But I'm not sure if it's going to be quite as many as you see in some of the tournaments with these kind of settings, where a guy with like 100 something power will hit like 20 home runs in a tournament. I'm not sure if there's anybody that's capable of that. Jeff Pfeffer, who Ludwig mentioned, certainly would be the best candidate for that. Wesley, the Negro League first baseman, also would probably be a prime candidate to have outsized power numbers. So, want to start looking at the individual players and what we think they might be able to do?
Just recapping on how I do my modeling. So I do the modeling based on FIP and WRC plus for batters, and then I kind of do a FIP minus model. So here is the bona fide Christophorus FIP model. So go out and buy all these cards. No, don't. The, if you've seen my tournament results recently and how I use these cards, yeah, my model is kind of like a guide. It's like a map where not a lot is kind of filled in, but you get like, hey, there's a big building. It's like there's a river here, but it's not really going to show you exactly the way. But yeah, let's talk about some of these cards.
So I think the big thing is if you look at just the shape of almost all of those cards, um, I think Herb Pennick is like 50 stuff, 100 plus movement, and like around 90 control. Lee Meadows is a little higher, like 65 stuff, and then 90 plus movement and like high 80s control, I believe. Um, Clark Griffith, similar profile. Bill Holland is a very similar profile to Pennick. And so, I think that that's probably going to be the profile of just the pitchers available. There's not a lot of, super high stuff pitchers in this player pool. So I think you're going to be looking at kind of low to medium stuff, high movement, high control is just going to be like you're going to want to take the best of those guys. And if you look, the very best are 93, 94 overalls. But if you go down a little bit, Sad Sam Jones does really well in gold tournaments. Or has I think he's been surpassed in those formats. But there's a lot of high gold pitchers that profile well. And then if you kind of go down into the lower gold or silver tiers, there are still a number of pitchers that don't obviously have as higher ratings, but have a very similar profile and probably will pitch well for the for the points. There are a few. If you go down into like the silver tier, there's a Bob Feller and Johnny Vandermeer are like high silver cards. Feller's a 74, but that have more high low profile. So if you want to give that a try, there are some options, but you kind of have to go down to like the silver tier, to find those. So they might be good cap options, but it's still 4 walks per 9 as the average. So a player like Feller with 33 control probably is going to be a little bit of a problem. So Ludwig, it goes down about 1.1 K per 9 from 9.1 to right around 8 for going from modern to 1998. Anything else that stands out to you with these pitching profiles?
So it's been a while, but doesn't this kind of seem like PTCS 1? Do you remember what PTCS 1 was? Because I feel like this is where like I played Barney Brown and then got absolutely destroyed by it. But I feel like the card pools kind of matched.
Yeah, it's a very similar card pool because that I think was the same 2 eras, Deadball and Rebirth, and the settings obviously were much different. And so but also you had the I think it was Diamond, and so you had a few more sluggers in the player pool.
Okay, so
I'm trying to think. I don't know that it was low diamond because I thought I played Babe Ruth. I thought that was like everybody's play was to play Babe Ruth in that format. So
maybe it was just Diamond.
Yeah, I don't know. There've been obviously been a number of them at this point, and I try and avoid thinking about them. That's right, Ludwig. The first one was an open format because I remember Kuzmin and There were a few other high price perfect cards for the first format, and then I saw it was probably the second one, which was a DEADBALL rebirth. So similar player pool, but I thought it would included diamond, not just low diamond. Um,
Batters. So
okay.
uh,
So looks like according to Exo's model, George Scales stands out as the strongest hitting profile in this format, which is interesting because he's not an extreme power card. Wesley, who comes in at number 2, is much more of a power hitter, and Chuck Klein, I think, is one of the higher power. I think he's a high 80s, low 90s power. And then Pfeffer, is kind of a flawed card, but definitely has the strongest power of any of the players in this pool. And given that it's, second base is kind of thin, and so it's an interesting option. Although you look at the number 2 option, there is Grantham, which Warbot favorite. The I is 100. That you're saving a lot of points if you're willing to drop down from Pfeffer to Grantham. Also, Frank Grant is an 83 at second base and has pretty high power as well. Not quite as high as Pfeffer, but also saves you some points. And remember, this is a fairly tight cap, so you're probably only going to be able to get a couple of diamond cards into your lineup unless you really want to go, stars and scrubs. Then you can get 8, but I did my build and I think I only had 4. Maybe 5 diamond cards, just because I felt like I needed to, at least have a solid player at most positions. So I downgraded quite a bit. And then, just if you look at, outfielders, there's not a lot of strong bats in center field. I think you might want to kind of save points there and just try and go for more of a defensive bat. In center field, outfield, Wilson Reedus looks like a standout. Much higher expected numbers than pretty much anybody else at that position. Him and Klein, are basically the only people who profile to be, significantly over, 100 ex-Woba. And the interesting thing going back to Scales is, he's technically a shortstop, but you can play him at first, second, third, or short. With that bat, I think you kind of have to play him somewhere if you have him. But I don't know that shortstop's the best choice. I think you might want to go a little bit more defensive at shortstop, and then play him at second or third, where his defense plays up a little bit. Anything that stands out to you among the hitters?
Yeah, obviously. So this is expected WRC plus. I just leave it as XWOBA because I don't want to update my sheets.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the I just use this as like a percentage guide, but how much Scales and Wesley and all those guys kind of end up is all going to be. I'm fairly confident that it's all going to be in the similar ranking, but how much they're better than everyone else is probably going to be a little different, I would say, when we start getting data from the tournament.
Sure.
But yeah, I have Tournament Lab open now, and it goes Pfeffer, then it goes Henrik, then it goes DiMaggio, then it goes Chick Hafey, and then it goes Buzz Clarkson. At least in my cards, because I don't have a lot of the Negro League stars. So there's a big drop off from Pfeffer to everyone else. Like Scales is with 61, but I think it's just the gap. Which actually, let me look up what the modifiers are. Uh, it's really the BABIP and power, and so the 88 BABIP, the 62 power, but I think he just has so much more eye than everyone else. But maybe that's not even it. Grantham has a lot of eye. Sammy Strang, McTammany, that's another Warbot favorite. Donny Bush. So I think it's kind of neat just because there's going to be, like you said, there's playing cards that don't necessarily have profiles for the format. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how we break the engine this time.
Okay. We move on and look at some of the bronze options for the format.
Yeah. So this is the high bronze cutoff, and again, the XFIP. Don't really look at what the numbers are, but kind of look at the rankings instead.
Sure. One of the things I thought was interesting as I built my roster is there's not a lot of great, and this is also true for hitters, which we'll see in a moment, but there's not a lot of great options right at 65. You're probably going to need to spend a couple points, to go move up to, the McClure, Slim Love, Nip Winners. Most of these guys are going to be pretty familiar for anybody that's played bronze, this year. Nap Rucker. A lot of these guys are, um, uh, you know, um, been strong performers in bronze, during the year. One interesting name that doesn't show out quite as well, even though I usually associate him with that group, is Freddie Shop. I think because his movement is low. Has done well in bronze, but might not be as good of a bullpen option in this format.
And looking at cards again, like one that I have never seen. Well, probably have seen, but never paid attention to is the guy on the right, about 10 guys down, Elmer Netzer. And I was like, who is this guy? And he's a guy who's 42, 99, 47.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'd play that, especially with the 50 inflection point.
Yeah, I will go, like a guy like Slim Love that I think is like, high 60s or low 70s stuff, you know, 80, 90 movement, and then only like 40 or 42 control. I'll take a chance on that of one of the ratings being below 50, but definitely not two. Um, and so, yeah, I think I do think we're going to see a lot of the same bullpen options. I think those top five, McClure, Slim Love, Nip Winners, Oscar Levis, Nat Rucker, I think we're going to see a lot of people play them. I think Shupp and Tom Hughes, because they're familiar um, from bronze tournaments, will probably get a lot of play. Um, Cy Morgan is probably the top option for 65 overall cards. Um, and then, there are some, decent, low silver, high silver cards that if you do want to use some points on, maybe one strong bullpen piece, there are some options for that. Feller, who I mentioned earlier, was a guy that I wanted to fit in. And although when I did my initial build, I was like 50 or 60 over the cap. So he was one of the casualties as I tried to pare down.
There are only 8 players that have above 50 stuff and above 50 control. that are 65 to 69.
Oh,
At
that's
least
interesting. Yeah.
at least that I have. So
Right.
yeah, getting into those bullpens if people aren't spending a lot, or at least probably 20 points in their bullpen, at least the tail end of it.
Sure.
Uh, let's go look at some batters. These are a lot of names that some that are familiar and some that aren't really.
Yeah. So, it's this is an interesting list. A lot of these names I think are familiar from kind of earlier in the year builds for bronze. I feel like I've played a lot of these guys, early in the year, and they've been replaced by mostly platinum 2 and 3 cards that obviously aren't eligible for this tournament. So as I mentioned before, if you notice, there's not a lot of 65s, and certainly not at or near the top of these lists, except for maybe Buzz Arlett. I feel like he'll be a popular play. I think he plays right field and I think first base as well. So that's a nice bench bat that can play a couple positions. Simmons and Hafey might not be bad options if you want to skimp on your DH and not spend a lot of points there. Neither are great defenders, but obviously that doesn't matter if you're DHing them. So I mean, these are the most likely you're going to be using a good number of these guys as your bench guys. And a lot of them have significant flaws, but just try and and most of these guys also don't have particularly high power. So it's not like that you're really going to want to seek that out. So I think getting somebody who's at least adequate at defense and has isn't going to be a complete zero with the bat. You can see just as we look at some of these options, the expected WRC plus drops off significantly. There's not a lot of options here, and some of them really have no bat whatsoever. Like Bernie Nice, who's a really good defender at center field. That bat is just going to get eaten alive. Compared to the pitchers in this format. Anything that stands out to you among this group?
Yeah, this guy with the 19 WRC plus. But that defense, I was like 105 third base. That's silly.
Yeah, that is not much. That there are iron cards that have a better hitting profile than that. So for that, but I do think that's an option. Depending on who you go with as your starting third baseman, if you want to just have a defensive replacement for the late innings, and then you're just relying on the defense on games where he needs to cover. The only thing is only playing one position defensively. When you get into the bronze and higher level Negro League cards, most of those have 3, 4, even sometimes 7 or 8 positions. So those might be better options for your backup positions, guys who can play multiple positions.
Yeah, it just the 19 WRC plus and the 102 is like, wow, this is a glove if I've
Yeah.
seen one. So what do you want to do next? Do you want to go in, look at build a team, or do you want to go to the next slide?
You want to why don't we finish the slides on the slideshow, and then maybe we'll go at that point switch to OHP and look to start building based on what you have. So we're going to take a quick break from Tournament Lab to look at the some of the weekly tournament statistics. This week I went back. It's been a couple of weeks since I showed these. So this is just top 10 finishes in weekly tournaments. There've been 23 weeks so far, weeklies is interesting for tournaments that most of the teams are only making the top 10, maybe obviously less than half to really more like a third of the time. And then if you contrast that and go to dailies, you'll see that there's a lot more teams in the daily rankings that fairly consistently are in the top 10. That those top six or seven teams, when you enter them, when I enter the ranking, the numbers every week, I'm not surprised that I don't have to go far down the list to add in add in the updates. I mean, this week was a little odd that only for these teams only 4 of them made the top 10, but a lot of weeks, as you can see, almost everybody on this list is making it pretty consistently. And looking at the numbers, I think Pluto's took the week off because I looked at like the top 50 and I didn't even I didn't see Red Eclipse on there. So I don't know. Maybe he tried to qualify in for weekly, needed some more points and played more weekly tournaments. But that was surprising that was a rare bad week for Palatine Plutos.
Wasn't that a streak of him and I guess Mr. Audit? And I guess Bluebird Silver, I know earlier on, I think, didn't they place in like the top 10 for the last how many weeks or whatever?
Let me look that up because
that's a lot. If this was like a bingo card, I think I would have won bingo. So, or whatever, a Keno card.
Yeah, so Red Eclipse finished in the top 10 the first 13 weeks of the season, then missed week 14, and then had a streak of 8. Mr. Audit's alt, let's see, has a streak 1, 2, 3, 4. 13 straight weeks making the top 10. And GKT is at 11 straight weeks making the top 10. Yeah, so Balking Dead at 13 weeks ties Red Eclipse for the longest streak of the year. And then in weeklies, I had an 11-week streak from week 10 to week 20. Is obviously the longest streak because that streak is longer than anybody else had top 10 finishes.
Yep.
And then let's take a look at some perfect draft members.
Daily PDs are still random.
Yeah, so daily PDs, there's not that many. I cut it off at 4 because there's a lot of people with 3, and I couldn't fit on the slide. But you can see there's not that many teams that are making the top 10, even like a quarter of the time. So these teams stand out at at least making the top 10 compared to everybody else, but it's not as extreme as for the weekly and daily tournaments. And there definitely seem to be a lot more teams playing them. One of the things I've noticed in inputting the stats, especially for the weekly PDs, you're getting a lot of people's alts. And there's a lot of people that have multiple alts that I'll see, it's a derivation on the same name. And, so each one only maybe has one or two, but when you add it all up, that person has, 7 or 8 weekly perfect draft top 10 finishes, which is pretty impressive, even if it is spread out over a number of different teams. And I don't know how many teams some of these people have, and if we're just seeing a small number of them make the top 10. But it does seem to be at least some of the same names. So if we're gonna look at the weekly list.
Why do you actually, going back to the daily PDs? Why do you think it's been more random? Like, I feel like earlier in the year, well, when we were still in the first 12 weeks, it seemed a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the card pool is just changing a lot. And so, it's harder to kind of be able to have a good feel for the card pool, because I feel like, there's just huge dumps of cards we've had the last couple of months that you really have to, you really have to know a lot of different cards to be able to, make good, quick decisions. I think that with the, I think just the proliferation of people that are active. One of the things I noticed, I didn't qualify in daily PD on my main this cycle, because I was trying to qualify in weekly perfect drafts and daily perfect drafts. And I thought I was just going to be able to have a good last 2 weeks and qualify, but you needed 120 points to qualify. So it just seems like there's a lot more people playing them, which probably is largely a function of people firing up go alts, and that's easy with not a lot of resources to just go in and do a couple extra perfect drafts each day, and have and try and build up resources for those alts. And a lot of them are theme team alts. So you're just trying to find ways to earn some points and cards that you can use for those teams. So I think it's probably a lot of different factors. I don't think it's any one thing. But yeah, it's definitely gotten a lot harder. There's to consistently perform well in the daily and probably also weekly perfect drafts. I mean, weekly, it's gotten a little bit easier just because you have more shots at it. Earlier on in the year, you only were able to enter 3, maybe sometimes 4, but now people can enter 6. This week is going to be really weird because there were a bunch of daily and weekly perfect drafts that launched with an hour to go before they fired, or launched right into quicks, and so people might have been able to get in 3 or 4 just today. Unlike most weeks is a lot harder. You have to sign up for weeklies 3 days in advance for the most part, and so you can kind of get in 6 if you time it right. Some of them you only need to get in 2 days in advance.
So I qualified, but I think it's because I place in the 5th or 9th in about every 5th tournament perfect draft I enter. So, and it's just it's just grinding. It's so much grinding.
Yeah, well, I mean, qualifying for for a lot of the PTCS events, if you're playing that one format, as many times as you can in a 5-week period, you don't need a ton of top finishes to sneak in there. And yeah, anything else you wanted to go over about the top tens, or let's look at the
Weekly,
overall list?
but nothing to really talk about the weeklies.
No, it's just, I mean, there's there's a couple teams. Laertes seems to be having the most success with between two teams, having 7 top tens is pretty impressive. And yeah.
Is this the end of the threes? Like everyone else after this is 2?
Yeah. So it's really, and there's not a ton of twos, and then it's just a huge number, hundreds of people that have only made the top 10 once. Because, especially early in the year, if you won a tournament and then basically played another one and picked up even a couple of points, you were usually in the top 10 for the week. And now you usually need more, like 35 or so points to make the top 10. So it's getting, you have to win and like another solid finish to make the top 10. So it definitely, it's not just striking, one big cash. You need to, kind of have one big one and then maybe, one or two other solid finishes, which when you're only getting 10th or 5 or 6, there's still a lot of luck involved in perfect drafts. So, definitely harder. I also think with both the daily and the perfect drafts, we're getting a lot of new formats on a regular basis, and I think it's hard. The game doesn't really prompt you to see what what the format is once you're in it. So you really have to like check beforehand. And I think there's a lot of people that, I even am guilty of this sometimes. I will often back out of it midway through because I realize I have no idea if like this tournament requires a DH. There's a lot of the there's a lot of the tournaments that are like in the 40s and even earlier, but still have a DH, and some of them do, some of them don't. So, it's something where a lot of times, you have enough extra spots to grab somebody that would play a DH, or if not, it'd be a key backup. But a lot of times I'd use that spot differently if I knew. So I'll either go back or, I try and write it down, when I start. And it, I find it helps, but sometimes I even forget to do that, and then I finish it up and realize that I had no DH spot. So I drafted a great, DH bat who can't really field anywhere, who's now like one of my primary backups, and doesn't really play any defense. So I miss out on the bat for the most part, and is a liability when he does play in the field. So I think there's a lot of that where you have to pay more attention to do well. So, and then the overall, I forgot to scroll down, but I still think there's no one who's made the top 10 with the same team in all 4. I tried while I was away out of town. I tried to qualify in weekly perfect drafts for a couple weeks and didn't come close. So maybe kind of some point end of this cycle, I'll try again if I've already qualified in daily. But it's just kind of a fun target to see if somebody there's a good number of people with 3, but not that many with 4. I think that's about it for the tournament numbers for this week. I'll probably I didn't get much time to work on it this week, so I'll try and come up with something we haven't seen before. We're now with 23 next week it'll be 24 weeks of data. There's maybe some more interesting stuff that I can kind of pull out of it, but we'll see what I can do for that. Anything else you wanted to say about these?
I know this past week, in the one chat that we have with Dirt and preparing for the stream, like he was like, "Oh, won another tournament. Oh, got second in another tournament," and we're like, "Oh my god, he's gonna like break the record." And then he ended up being second this week, and it was just kind of a little mind-boggling. But
Next, though, I'm offended. I finished second. He
oh,
finished third.
this was 2 weeks ago, then, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
two
yeah.
weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he had a monster week and still finished second because Isidafo had like this. I think it was the second best week of the year with like 134 points. Um, uh, but but yeah, so that Durden, the last 2 weeks, Durden has been on an absolute heater. I think he's won um, at least three, probably four tournaments during that stretch. And he's I think he'll be one of the top seeds in the PTCS this weekend for weekly. So hopefully we'll be able to get him back on here soon to share his wit and wisdom, and we won't have to just rely on that slide of him as his contribution.
We miss him. We miss him dearly. So yeah, let's load into this tournament lab. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see what. Yeah, as my slow computer loads up. Cannot find a default roster type for this tournament. Perfect.
It's a rare situation where that's not like a catastrophic announcement.
So I like to, and this is probably why I struggle. I like to start with pitching.
Okay.
Oh, with it being a cap, you said the cap number was 9.
Eight,
Did you,
just
did you,
under eight.
did you see my post about live bronze? No, Slivered. What'd you post about live bronze? I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking, Slivered. 8. So, what did it say? Who was at the top of the list? It was someone like Panic, right? With the 109, like the
Yeah.
insane. So,
Pennick. I think Pennick, Griffith, Bill Holland was very high on that list. Um, Lee Meadows.
the fact that I like put in Panic and now I have 200 points left, I'm a little
Battery
anxious.
low.
I'm a little anxious about starting two diamonds now.
Yeah, I started out having a lot, and then kind of realized that I needed to pull back. That I end up mostly. I think I would mostly
Charging
have
battery.
gold and silver starters.
If I go in here and I look at some high gold starters, I guess Hamilton should be good. Hamilton, I kind of like that. 72, 69, 72. And then maybe throw 3 silver starters, high silver, low gold.
Yeah, I like for silver. I'm trying to remember who I looked at. I mean, Hilario Diaz is an interesting one. He's like above 70 in all three. Um,
Bill McCall, I don't have, but he'd probably be good. Dismiscus? I think I have Dismiscus. Or do I not? Dizzy Dismiscus. 50, 91, 79? That's not bad.
Probably not bad.
Is there a DH or no DH?
Um,
It is being used.
DH is being used. Yes.
So he's very splitty. Is that a concern? 40-58?
Um, yeah, I'd probably try and avoid somebody, a starter that's that splitty.
Like, how many good left-handed bats are there, though? Right?
Um,
Because if I
that's
go,
true. I don't. Uh,
it's Donovan, Santop, Holliker, Curry, McNair, Shutton, uh, Dickey, Heinrich. I guess Heinrich is pretty powerful, but even
yeah.
then,
So
he's splitty too. So
yeah. So I do think you're gonna end up with most likely most most hitting lineups are going to end up with mostly righty bats. So probably are going to want to use righty pitchers, and ones that are that are splitty are not going to be the end of the world. Um,
man, this is hard. Who made this?
it was a group of crazy people, and we just have to roll with whatever nonsense they came up with for the next month, and then hopefully somebody will give us a better idea for the next format.
Let's look at some more silvers. Root Foster.
Yeah, I think for the silvers, I think the profile we were talking about, a lot of them, um, the New League cards among the silvers, Roosevelt Davis, Nelson Dean, um, Ruben Curry wouldn't be a bad one because he's only a 2, so that would give you some points. Um, what's the guy? Estacio Pedroso. I think he's like a 73.
Yep,
Um,
it's
he
not
wouldn't
bad.
be necessarily a bad option.
He's a good hitter too, or a decent hitter.
Yeah, but probably not enough to beat out a low high bronze hitter. So I don't think you'd use him for anything in a TH format.
Ruben Curry, have him play some outfield when he's not pitching.
Yeah, that's that's going to be a big factor in in this format because it is a tight cap. I think you're going to want to try and um, you know use some two-way players. A lot of the obviously Negro League pitchers, have they're not necessarily great bats, but they're decent bats, and um, they can cover at least as backups certainly at a number of different positions. So you obviously you'd prefer to have a guy that can actually start at both to really be saving up points. I think the best option for that would be to go with double duty as an 80, overall. That can probably be your starting or backup catcher, and then also be one of your starters.
Yeah, I think that I like that idea. I'll go roll double duty.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I skimped at catcher. I think I went with double duty and Petway as my duo at catcher. So I kind of basically didn't spend any points at catcher. And then double duty also being in my rotation.
Not a lot of catchers. But yeah, I think Petway is probably. You had him start. I think that makes sense if you're having him start.
Yeah, I think I had double duty starting, but then Petway is the backup.
You
Um,
did it that way.
Yeah, I did it that way. I don't know if that's. I'll have to think more between now and when the tournament runs as whether that makes the most sense. Um, but I just thought, in terms of value, that made sense to me to go with those two to try and save some points.
So first base, maybe I'll play Scales. Maybe I'll play Harry Davis. Still have some points there, I think. Second base, do I have room to pay up for Pfeffer? I do right now, but we'll see if when we get there. Third base, George Davis. That's not the best defensive profile for a third baseman, but defense doesn't matter. Uh, Judy Johnson, probably do Judy Johnson maybe.
I feel like I ended up going with Scales at third, um, and then I went with um, who's the League League shortstop who has amazing range. Um, Frankie Austin.
Yeah.
So that's what I went with. As went with the defensive shortstop. Um,
Double duty in center field. I,
there you
I,
go.
I like the way the AI thinks.
um, Center field's interesting. I think a lot. Spotswood Poles will probably get a lot of play. Um, I'm trying to think of who.
There's Nice.
Yeah,
He
Nice. The bat is just so bad that I don't know.
Cheney White seems not the worst. The BABIP
Yeah,
was up there.
I think if you're going to go with this, Silver, McTamaney is probably a good option. And then I think I went with Vince DiMaggio just because I wanted to see. He plays pretty good defense, and then has by far the best power among the center field options.
What's our team look like? Chick Havesy in left, Jim McTamaney in center, Bruce Petway in right field.
Wait, right field. Okay, I'd go with Buzz Arlett in right field ahead of Petway, I think.
I haven't got there yet. Buzz Artlett. Yep, he's gonna be my right fielder. Uh, the AI still wants to play Petway in right field. This doesn't
Okay.
seem too bad. Harry Davis DHing. I think Harry Davis was pretty good on that sheet, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would probably go. I would think about going Harry Davis at first, Scales at third, and then there's probably somebody with those Judy Johnson points that would be a better DH. Would be
Yeah.
my guess.
With
But
I have a ton of points. I can go up to. I guess it depends on who I have. Do I have a Chuck Klein?
no,
Chuck.
you could, if you have Chuck Klein, you could put him in there, um, and then move Hafey into DH, where his awful defense doesn't hurt you as much.
Chuck Klein. I do not have a Chuck Klein. I could buy
Okay.
one for 13K though, even though I don't need him. Uh, we will persevere.
Okay. I think you can build without.
Let's see who else is good here. Uh, George Davis, but that's not really. I guess George Davis is kind of like a bat first
Yeah, you could put him at
super.
third. Um, that's not crazy.
Switch this out.
one thing keep in mind when we're looking at the bullpen guys that you're probably going to want to use mostly 66s and 67s, so you're going to need some points um, for those guys.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's look at some pictures. Try to figure out who we're gonna put in. Uh, since there's only like this many. Moncrief, is he? Where was he on the list? No. Who do we want? We want in Winters. This is the wrong pitching ratings. Who did we want?
Yeah, Slim Love, Knaprucker, Nip Winters, Barnhill. Barnhill's probably not the top of the list, but
Eh?
if
No.
you,
Ferdy Ship. Ferdy Ship is probably good.
yeah, he didn't rate out quite as well in your predictions as a lot of these other 66, 67 guys. But McClure, I think, was the number one guy on there. Is a 67. Um, Slim Love was high up there, but he's a 68. If you have the points for that.
I picked Levis over because the walks just worry me, but
Sure.
maybe especially with Pet. Well, I guess Petway's not. He's gonna help a little bit, I think, right?
I mean, not a ton. Um,
73
there.
catcher.
Yeah,
So how's our bullpen looking? We have 9 guys. I think I'm gonna have to drop a guy because I have 4 points and I need a lot of people.
okay.
Let's just fill this out. Actually, I want to see who are the 60. Oh, okay. We have lots of guys who can field spots as
Yeah,
65.
no. Hitter wise, you've got a little bit more reasonable options without spending any points. Um,
Let's just throw all these guys in. Do we have our 14 guys? We do have our 14 guys. We do graphical.
are you going with your awesome uh, 105 defense third baseman backup
No,
scales?
no.
Okay,
George Davis is gonna mosey on out of the DH spot for now and do it.
that's nice. I mean, that's pretty good because he kind of plays passable defense at center field, third base, and shortstop. That's a nice for DH, and then you can have kind of Buzz Arlit. Oh no, are you starting Buzz Arlit or no? Yeah, you are. So you'll probably need something have Stephen. I guess McCormick would be good bat for backup DH.
Yeah, and I think the McCormick profile, he's he's gonna strike out, but he's
Yeah,
gonna get on base. He's gonna hit some doubles.
yeah, you're going to need to use some low the low the 65, 66 bats. So he's not terrible. I don't know that he's the best option, but at a certain point, if you spend up on your high bronze cards 2 or 3 points at every spot, it adds up, and then you kind of lose out on a more elite option. So um, given the fact that they're not going to play a ton, um, I don't think it's the best use of the points.
Maybe throw in. I get one more because double duty is counts for both. But then yeah, so I have 4 points to finish my pitchers. Winters is active. This is pitching. Shop. We're gonna try him out. Uh, Levis, I liked 67. Chalky gives up too much. Nip Winters is in there. Let's try Tom Hughes. Gives us 3 more points, so we can go for a 67.
I would go with McClure if you don't already have him in there.
I have McClure in there.
Okay.
Good. Drop Hughes, put in Love. 1 point. Put in Lefty West, and we're done.
There you go. Well done, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
So that's going to be the format for this version of Tournament Lab. I don't know. I haven't looked yet whether we're going to have 4 or 5 weeks before we get the next one. As always, we'd love to get feedback from people about whether you like this format, what you like about it if you do, why you don't like it if you don't, and then also if you have ideas for for other formats, you can DM me or Extaforus or Durden or Charles or Mike ABC, any of us that are involved in either the Warbot stream or this stream. We will love to get feedback and hopefully come up with another good format. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's a fun format. It's a tight cap. I think there's a lot of good options, but I think it'll be interesting to see. I think people will kind of start with a lot of different builds, and will be interesting to see if kind of a consensus build emerges over the course of the first couple of weeks, or if it turns out there's a lot of different ways to build for this. So good luck, everybody, in all the new tournaments, especially Tournament Lab, and we will hopefully see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Bye.